Hello students. In this video lecture, we are going to learn about how to use these punctuation marks appropriately in our writing, because this is the main thing that makes the difference to the whole writing. Like, see here, one comma, the placement of this single comma, saved a life. When you read this, it conveys a different meaning, and when we just put a comma here, it conveys a different meaning. Let's eat grandma. Let's eat grandma. So here the placement of comma has made a lot of difference, a huge difference. So when we are placing these punctuation marks, we have to be very careful and we have to follow certain rules, to use them appropriately in our writing. Let us take, see the symbols of these punctuation marks, as we know already because we have been using them uh, for a long time. These are all the known symbols only: colon, dash, quotations, parenthesis, like semicolon, question mark, asterisk, like all these symbols that we use in our writing. And each and every symbol has its own meaning, and of course has in different contexts we use these symbols. And when we are using these symbols in our writing, we have to follow certain rules. And let us start with the basic symbol, that is period. So where to use this period? Usually we use this period at the end of a declarative sentence. In a declarative sentence, after the completion of the sentence, we put a full stop to show that this sentence or this thought is complete. And we use it at the end of the imperative sentence also. Sometimes imperative sentence means imperative words, single words are also used, and like look, only one single word we use. And after that imperative, like look, it starts action word. And so it's an imperative expression, and so we put an exclamatory mark. Or else, like, hold, we put an exclamatory mark. So I'm not talking about such expressions, but if it is a sentence, an imperative sentence, a complete sentence, then usually we just end that sentence in a period. Like, keep that book on the table. It started with an action verb. Like, this kind of sentence is called as an imperative sentence, and it has ended with a period mark. Now let us see, after most initials and abbreviations, like, the titles of the persons or abbreviations, the short forms of the words, like to indicate that it is a short form of the word, we just put a period mark. And also after the titles or initials also, we just put a period mark. And also we use this period mark as a decimal point in mathematical expressions, as you all are well aware of such things, like 10.5, 8.6, in the sense like decimal point. As a decimal point also we use these period marks. Now the second one is question mark. As we know it very well, after the questions, like after the interrogative sentences, we use these question marks. Means after a direct question, like what is your name is a direct question, the example which is given here. Of course it ended with a question mark because it's an interrogative sentence. Now at the end of an incomplete question, like, it sometimes won't be in the full form of a sentence, but sometimes we use a single word or expression to convey that it's a question. Like such words also ends with question. Like when someone said to you something, then to confirm, if you put a question, really. So really is not a statement. Of course we are just trying to confirm ourselves what he said, what the other person said is right or wrong. So such words, incomplete sentences also stops with a question mark. And when a statement is intended as a question, like if you use a statement to convey a question, so such expressions also ends with a question mark. Is going to come. Actually, it's a statement, but the tone that you use when you are asking, is going to come, so it's a question. Like, in your expression, you are trying to confirm whether the person is going to come or not. Of course, it's a statement, but we are using it as a question. And the third one is comma. Commas, usually, these are very quite common punctuation marks that we use: period, question mark, and commas. Commas, of course, we have a lot of rules to follow when to use these commas. Use a comma to separate two or more items in a series. If you are just trying out, like, you're trying to list out more items in a series, then we try to, like, give a pause between, so that, when the reader also will get a clarity how to, like, he has to take a short pause and go ahead. He likes carrot, eggs, and fried chicken. So there are many items in the sentence. So we just try to segregate them, like separate them using commas. To separate adjectives that modify the same noun. If more than one adjective is used to modify the same noun, then to differentiate, like to show that uh, separation, we use these commas. The loud beeping buzzer. Buzzer is the noun, and we have used two adjectives here. Beeping buzzer, loud beeping buzzer. So, like, so we just demarked it with a comma. Between a city and a state, if you are just mentioning both the things, one after the other, like between them, we use a comma. After greeting and closing of a friendly letter. So when you are writing letters also in greetings, after greeting we put a comma, after complimentary close we put a comma. Like dear Sagar, we put a comma. And yours truly, we put a comma if it's a friendly letter. And between the date and year in a date, when you just mention the date, after the date we put a comma and we write the year. This is the right sequence of writing the date and year. So we use commas to separate two or more items in a series. We use commas to separate adjectives that modify the same noun, and between a city and a state, and also in greetings and closings of a friendly letter, and also between the date and year in a date. And we use this before the conjunction that joins the independent clause in a compound sentence. As I think we have learned about this in a previous video, when we are dealing with the sentence structure, I think so. When we were dealing with the sentence structure, we came across this independent clause, compound sentences, all these terms. And when we are writing this compound sentence, but before the conjunction that joins the independent clause in a compound sentence, we use the comma. See here, I tried to call you on Saturday evening, but your line was busy. So this is an independent clause. I tried to call you on Saturday evening. And before this, like, your line was busy. We are trying to connect these two clauses by using a conjunction. And before this conjunction, we are trying to place a comma. So we have to place a comma before the conjunction that joins the independent clause in a compound sentence. Now, see the other rule, after the independent clause at the beginning of a sentence. Like after the dependent clause at the beginning of a sentence. So if we have two clauses in a sentence and one is independent, the other is dependent, after the dependent clause, we use a comma. After introductory words or mild interjections at the beginning of a sentences. See here. These are introductory words. Yes, you can borrow my CD, my new CD. Yes, no, therefore. So such words, introductory words, we use comma. And if we use interjections also, the strong emotional expressions, what we use. So when we are just trying to use such interjections, so then we use a comma after the interjection at the beginning of a sentence. Like to set off the name of the person you are speaking to. When you are speaking, to set off the name, like when you are writing the dialogue what was spoken, we use this comma after the name of the person we are referring to. Jenny, can you have dinner at my house tonight? So this is the name of the person. To set off the name from what you are going to tell, we use a comma. To set off a positive. Positive is a noun or phrase that renames or further identifies the noun it follows. That means here, positive is nothing but the expression which is used to define whom you are referring to or to define the noun. Mrs. Tyra, my math teacher, won the teaching award. So the part which is kept in in commas, is called as a positive because it is giving a identification of which person we are referring to. So my math teacher, who is she? Mrs. Tyra. Tyra won the teaching award. So this, when you are using appositives in a sentence, like it has to be kept in between commas. Now let us see one more rule with words that interrupt a sentence basic idea. Dad, therefore, will have to leave the match early. So this word actually we are using just to create a connection. Okay, and such interruptive words in a sentence also are set off by using these commas. Without this, there is no, like, of course it gives a meaning. Dad will have to leave the match early. Dad, therefore, will have to leave the match early. That means this word is trying to refer to some reason what is given earlier. So dad, therefore, will have to leave the match early. Such words, if you get in a sentence which interrupts the flow of the sentence, then these words also kept in between the commas. Now, in front of a short, direct quotation in the middle of a sentence, Callie asked, "Is that your dad sitting over here?" In front of a short, direct quotation in the middle of a sentence, like, so before the quotation also we have to use a comma. At the end of a direct quotation, that is a statement when it comes at the end of a at the beginning sentence. So Mrs. Howard is giving a luncheon today. Explain, Mom. So here the thing is, like, if at the end of a direct quotation also we have to use a comma when it comes at the beginning of the sentence. Now let us take one more punctuation mark, that is semicolon. So when to use this semicolon? Use it to join to join independent clauses in a compound sentence without a comma and a conjunction. So if you are not using any conjunction to join the compound sentence, instead of conjunction, we use a semicolon. One cousin is driving from Vizag, another will take a plane from Mumbai. So these are two clauses which we are trying to combine to make it a compound sentence. For this, instead of using a conjunction, we have used a semicolon. So it's not always that we use a conjunction to combine the clauses to make it a compound sentence. Sometimes instead of conjunctions, we use this semicolon. Now, before some conjunctions that join two simple sentences into one compound sentence, use a comma after the conjunction. He cooked a huge dinner. Therefore, he invited the neighbors over. So before some conjunctions that join two simple sentences, he cooked a huge dinner is one simple sentence. He invited the neighbors over is the other simple sentence. In order to join these two things into a compound sentence, we use a semicolon. Of course, when there is a conjunction, use a comma after the conjunction. The other one, to separate a series of items when one or more items include comma. So the art supplies we need for class are paint brushes, red, yellow and blue paint. So we have different items here, but what happens is we are supposed to use commas also in between the words in a single item also. Then it gets like we get confused. So what to do is, to make it more clear, what we use is semicolon when one or more items include comma. So here paint, blue paint, like paint is one item, paint brushes is one item, but paint we have different things here, red, yellow and blue. So in order to show that separation, we use commas in between. So in order to avoid that confusion, we just keep a semicolon between the items. Paint brushes, excuse me, red, yellow and blue paint, a sketch pad, a charcoal pencil, a calligraphy pen and an art mark. So to separate a series of items, also we use semicolon. The other one is apostrophe. Like, when to use this? Use it to show possession. Sam's bag is here. Here we are using this punctuation to show possession. To take the place of a missing letter in contraction. Like here we have showed it as a position. To show the position, we have used this mark. Like this bag belongs to Sam. Here, to show that a letter is missing, we have used the mark. That is, it's a big deal. It's a big deal in the sense it is a big deal. Is means I is missing. The letter I is missing. To show that a letter is missing there, we have used this mark. Now, to form the plurals of letters and numerals. To form the plurals of letters and numerals, all A's ought to be colored. Here, all A's in the sense A's plural. We are using the form to form the plurals of letters. Separate all hundreds. So here for numerals also we have used the mark. Now, some apostrophe marks involve the confusion of two words that sound the same but have different meanings. Let us see with the examples. Confusion of its and its. So sometimes we get confused. Its is a possessive pronoun, and if you use the apostrophe here, then it is a contraction. So there's a simple difference. If you use an apostrophe, then that is called as a contraction. If you do not use that, then it is a possessive pronoun. The dog pulled on its leash. The dog pulled on its leash. Here, its in the sense it is used as a possessive pronoun. So there is no need of putting a mark there. I just realized it's time to go. It's time to go means it is time to go. So it is showing a contraction here. So we have used that apostrophe. Now, confusion of your and your. Your is a possessive pronoun, while your is a contraction. If you see this mark, then it is a contraction. If you don't have the mark, like it shows that it is a possessive pronoun. Don't forget your umbrella. Here, your is used as a possessive pronoun. You're the best dancer I have ever seen. Here, it's a contraction form. Confusion of whose and whose. Whose is a possessive pronoun, while whose is a contraction. Who is. Whose turn is it to take out the trash? I wonder who's going to play Hamlet. So when you just look at these words, of course, by looking at the mark we have used, we come to know whether it is a contraction or as a possessive pronoun. But while speaking, of course, we have to be very careful to identify that. Now we see exclamation point. Usually, we use this exclamation point after strong interjections, exclamatory sentences, and strong imperative sentences also. So, sir, get off the desk immediately. So, we are just using that when you are using the strong imperative sentences, as I said, get off the desk immediately. So, we use hyphen to break a word between syllables at the end of a line in two part numbers from 21 to 99, in spelled cut fractions, and in some compound nouns and adjectives. So when to use this hyphen is, like we use this at the end of a line in two part numbers from 21 to 99. 4/5 of the 22 drive-in movies in town have closed. So this is an example for this 4/5. That means two part numbers. Like we have used a hyphen to show that 4/5 of the 22 drive. Here also we have two parts. Drive-in movies in town have closed. In spelled cut fractions and in some compound nouns, drive-in movies. Here, compound nouns and adjectives also. Drive-in movies. What kind of movies? Drive-in movies, and drive-in is an adjective. In town have closed. So this is like where we have used hyphen. Now the other punctuation is colon. They indicate a brief pause. They aren't just as final as periods. That means they are not like full stops, but it's just a brief pause. Use it after the greeting in a business letter. Usually this colon is used after the greetings in a business letter to introduce a list. Sometimes when you are trying to introduce a list of things, before that also we use this colon between numbers in time. So when you are writing time. So between the numbers, we put this colon. And to introduce an important quotation in a report, essay, or a news story. When you are trying to introduce an important quotation in a report or essay, see in this example, the police officer stated, "We found the suspect's fingerprints at the scene of the crime." Means we are trying to introduce a statement here, what is stated by the police officer, and we just kept it in, and we just try to keep a colon before we refer to the words that were spoken by the police officer. Dash. Dash is like a hyphen only. Use it to separate and stress elements in a sentence. When you want to stress a part of a sentence, or when you just want to emphasize a part of a sentence, then we usually keep that in between the dashes. The cafeteria and no other room may be used for school lunches. Use after an uninterrupted or unfinished statement of thought, or to introduce a list of items. You will need three things: a pencil, an eraser, and a ruler. So like you use an uninterrupted or unfinished statement of thought, or to introduce a list of items. So here we have introduced a list of items. Before introducing a list of items, we kept a dash. Use after an introductory list. Like here, toys, hairbrushes, chewing gum. These items must be left at home. So when we are trying to give an introductory list also, after the list, we just keep a dash. Also use before and after comments inserted into a sentence to give information or add emphasis. So we use these dashes before and after the comments when they are inserted in a sentence to give more information or to add emphasis. Ellipsis. This is also one of the punctuation mark that we use. It is used to replace words that have been left out. Use an ellipse to indicate that something has been left out of the middle of a sentence. If something is left out at the end of a sentence, use a period and then ellipse. Like see here in this example. Mary, Mary, how does your garden grow? That here, something like we called the person and we just took a little gap and then we questioned. 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth this nation, and we just left it without completing. So when we just leave something without completing, so to indicate that, we use this ellipsis. Parenthesis. Like use it to give the reader added information. Also use before and after an abbreviation or an acronym of company or organization once its full form has been written. Read the story. Like we are just providing the details, the pages, the number of, like the page numbers here, pages 4 to 5. So we kept it in bracket. This is an added information which we have given. A representative from American Airlines. This is an abbreviation, AA. When you are just trying to give the abbreviation of this full form, so we kept that abbreviation in brackets. So these are the two uses of parenthesis. And the other one is quotation marks. When to use these quotation marks? Use double quotation marks to set off a direct quotation. That means direct words of the speaker. To indicate the direct words of the speaker, we just put that part in quotations. See, when will you be here? He asked. He asked when I would be there. These are indirect words. We have changed the speech. And here, this is the right form. But when we change that into indirect, there is no need of using quotations. Either quotation marks or italics are customary for titles, magazines, books, plays, films, songs, poems, articles, titles, article titles, chapter titles, etc. When you are trying to refer to some, titles of magazines, books, plays, or something, like we just put them in quotations. Periods and commas always go inside quotation marks. When you are using quotation marks, if you want to place period or a comma then it should be inside the quotation mark only. As you see here, the sign said walk. See here, full stop, we have ended the sentence, and this, full stop is kept inside the quotation. Then it said, don't walk. Comma we have, and we kept it within the quotations only. Then walk. So we just kept the comma within the quotations, all within 30 seconds. Hey, old, hurry up. So whatever the part that you keep within the quotations, if you get a full stop or comma in that, you have to keep it inside the quotation marks only. Use single quotation marks for quotations within quotations. So he said, like, if you get quotations within quotations, so how to demark that is, like, the part which you get within the quotation mark, that part has to be kept in single quotes. Like here, Dan cried, do not try me that way. Do not treat me that way. So this is kept in single quote, and this is within the quoted part. Quotation marks are often used with technical terms, terms used in an unusual way, or other expressions that vary from standard use. So, quotation marks are often used with technical terms, terms used in an unusual way, or other expressions that vary from standard use. It's an oil extraction method known as fracking. This is a technical term, so it is indicated in quotation mark. He did some experimenting in his college days, because this is put in the quotation marks. I had a visit from my friend, the taxman. So here, when you are just trying to emphasize or you specify something, or if you are using a technical term in between what you are telling, you can put that particular term in quotations. When quoted materials runs more than one paragraph, start each new paragraph with opening quotation marks, but do not use closing quotation marks until the end of the passage. So if you are just trying to, like, it's a long, lengthy paragraph, like lengthy text, and you want to start a new paragraph, of course your quotations didn't end, then what you do is, when you are starting a new paragraph, you try to start that new paragraph with the opening quotations, but don't end the quotations till the end of the passage. She wrote, I don't paint anymore. For a while, I thought it was just a phase that I would get over. Now I do not even try. So here, you could see that this is a part, and it is ended here, and this is the next paragraph, and also we have started these quotations. At the end of the passage only, we used this, we closed this quotation mark. So this is all about the punctuation marks, and I think, like, we have discussed whatever the basic punctuation marks that we would be using in our writing, and all the rules related to that, and exceptions related to those, the uses of these punctuation marks. Thank you very much.